Welcome to my tutorial for Russian Attack for the NES. And this game took me around 6 hours, 19 minutes to beat. And I actually alternated between this and the Famicom Disk System version. I actually beat that first. That's the easier version, so I decided to beat that first. That version is called Green Beret, and in that version it's Japan only on the Famicom Disk System. And that version gives you 3 continues. And you respawn where you died until you lose all your lives. And then you go back out to the beginning of the stage when you continue. In this one, there's no continues. It's quite a bit more aggressive with, it seems more enemies, faster enemies, things like that. Less power-ups. And it's, of course, one-hit deaths, just like the Famicom Disk version. But you don't respawn where you died. When you die, you get sent really far back, usually. There's not many checkpoints in the stages. And there are no continues, so those are the main things that make it a lot harder. Though the Famicom Disk System version, the final boss is much harder, but aside from that, like this version is way harder. So I actually have a strategy to exploit both versions of the final boss. I have a tutorial linked in the description of this video for Green Beret for the Famicom Disk System. I'm also working on Green Beret for the arcade, which seems to be the most aggressive version, but it's a shorter game than the NES version, and also the Famicom Disk version. So for this first boss, you can use the rocket launcher if you want, and you can eliminate all 3 or 4 waves of enemies. I think it's 3 waves of enemies. They come out in a group of about 5 or 6. I didn't do it there, but if you want, you can just bring the rocket to the end of the stage and just stand about halfway down the screen and just wait for about 4 or 5 enemies to spawn on screen. Fire your rocket, wait for another 4 or 5 enemies to spawn, fire another rocket, and then fire the third rocket with the last group of 4 or 5 enemies. This game can be quite difficult with the one-hit deaths, and there's a lot of tricky spastic bullshit that happens. And the biggest enemy of the game for me was the ladders. Those are the hardest enemies to deal with because the ladders fuck me up so many times. But you see, it's easy to die. This is unedited, so you'll see all the deaths. But you can only die so many times since you will earn a few one-ups from points, but that's about it. So you may have about 6 lives or so to beat the game, considering that you'll get a few one-ups just for getting far. So, as I mentioned in the other tutorial, the same basics apply as far as each color of enemy has a different pattern. There's about 3 different enemy types, really, that you have to worry about. There's a 4th enemy type that lays down on the ground, but they usually just run away. But, of course, you can't touch any of the enemies. But the ones that lay on the ground provide you some kind of power-up weapon that you can use. But the orange enemies always fire bullets. The running orange enemies, not the ones laying on the ground, but the orange enemies always fire bullets at you, and they always chase you on ladders. Whether you're above or below them, they constantly try to go up and down the ladders to get to you. So use that to your advantage. Stab them while they're climbing on the ladder, either up or down the ladder. There's also snipers that you can consider an enemy type, but they're mostly just shooting at you. That you can't really. The only way to take them out is with a rocket at the correct height. So you can take them out sometimes. I don't think I did it in this playthrough. I have done it before. If you stand on top of some of the trucks and then inch the screen, you can take out the rocket guys by doing a jumping rocket shot. For this boss, focus on taking out the minions first so you don't have to worry about them. And then just take your time, try to jump and stab one of those fucking jetpack guys when you have an opening, but don't rush it. Because if you touch their body, you die. It's like Castlevania or Ghosts and Goblins. When you commit to a jump, the trajectory's locked in. You can't adjust your distance mid-flight or anything. But like Ghosts and Goblins, you can jump away from an enemy, turn back around, and stab in midair. And that's actually useful when trying to retreat and attack at the same time. When you're really closed in by an enemy, sometimes you'll want to do that. So there's some maneuvers that you'll want to learn as far as being able to spin around and take out guys fast. The red enemies always jump when they get to you, so as long as you jump and attack, you'll kill them. The other option with the red enemies is to just simply walk under them and they'll jump over you, even if there's a group of 3 or 4 of them. The downside to that is that you can't be defensive if you're walking under the enemies, because if you stop the stab, you'll get hit if another enemy is running close to the red enemy. So I like to play defensively most of the time. I don't like to run under the red enemies too much because I don't really trust it. Now, if you had the game memorized, and speed running it, of course, the patterns are the same each time. If you memorize the whole game and how to move fast through it, you can carve a path that way. But that's going to take a lot longer than 6 hours, at least for me it would. So you'll see later on I really inch the screen and try to bring out the enemies slowly, sometimes one at a time if I can. And that helps a lot because there's no timer in the game. And your only weapon really is your knife. See, at that point, you see I fucked up there. What I should have done is stepped back a little bit and let those 2 enemies converge onto the ground floor and then attacked. So it's just little things like that you want to try to remember. There's a lot of little shit like that. So you'll definitely see some fuck-ups. See, I'm starting to play shitty in this area, so I was able to recover the run, luckily. But I had some stupid fuck-ups early on. But yeah, the main thing is managing the 2 or 3 different types of enemies that there is at the same time. Depending, it's almost like a rhythm game, as I've said. Depending on the order they come at you at, you're going to attack differently. So for ground enemies, you want to do a ground strike, and for the jumping enemies, you jump. And then if there's an enemy with the bullets, you're going to want to duck the bullets and then inch closer to the enemy to take him out. You always want to take out the orange enemies immediately. You don't want to let them survive unless they're running away. But if you can't walk them off screen, you want to kill them because they will completely fuck up your movement by shooting at you constantly while you're trying to do other shit. So always take them out first. My biggest tip for this game is the same as for the Famicom disc version, and it's whenever you approach ladders, don't walk past the ladder until you're sure that you've cleared the screen from the enemies that are on screen at that time. Just inch the screen, because enemies constantly move in the more you inch the screen. It's pretty much like the trigger points for the enemies is inching the screen. So do it carefully. Don't walk past the ladder unless you're sure it's safe to do it. Make sure you clear out the enemies first. Try to lure the enemies so that you're not standing standing in front of the ladder. If you're standing in front of the ladder and you try to jump, you'll just get stuck on the ladder and probably die. So that's why I do it that way. This is the easiest boss in the game. There's 6 dogs in each phase, and it starts, 6 dogs to the right, 6 dogs to the left, 6 dogs to the right, 6 dogs to the left, and then it alternates, right, left, right, left, right, left. And all you got to do is duck and be stabbing in the direction that the dogs come in. So it's super easy. I was using a turbo controller, so for me, I just hold the attack button down instead of mashing. And it's pretty useful, especially on the final boss, but I think you could do it, just mashing as well. I just pretty much use turbo whenever it's useful in a game and I have it available, I'll pretty much use it. So this part is tough too. You want to just play it carefully, and it's good to know what's going to happen in this area as far as the enemy arrangements. It helps a lot to know what's coming to some degree, so you can clear some shit out. And you want to try to grab the rocket launcher on the 2nd floor. But for the most part, if you don't have the game completely memorized for moving fast, it's best to just inch the screen and take your time. And you're going to see that on the last 2 stages. I really play slowly on the last few stages. Even worse, slower pace than what I'm doing here, so it's pretty slow. But I was just trying to beat the game, so, whatever works was what I was going to do. You can also use rockets to clear out landmines, so if you want to clear them out, do it that way. You can also use grenades for the same effect. And remember, with the rockets, if you walk the screen forward after shooting a missile, you can clear out a bunch of enemies, as the rocket will just keep going and going through all the enemies as you walk with it. Though the missile moves faster than you do, so you can't do that infinitely. When you're jumping over these mines, you want to set it up so that you're jumping over the mine as you're stabbing the red jumping enemy. You want to line that up. Otherwise, it's going to be out of sync and you're going to land on a mine or, get killed by the red guy or some asshole that's walking under. You kind of want to set all that shit up, You want to be planning ahead as you see the enemies coming. You want to be, quickly deciding every move that you're going to make pretty much. So that comes with just practicing and getting used to certain enemy arrangements. When you see them in a certain order, you kind of know what to do to some extent. Though certain arrangements are dangerous. The most dangerous arrangement for me is when there's a red jumping enemy directly on top of a brown, ground enemy that walks along the ground. That's a really bad combo. When they're stacked on top of each other, it doesn't happen often, but if it does, it's difficult to deal with. You pretty much want to do like a ground strike. You want to be stabbing while you're on the ground as you jump up. Continuously stabbing, and you can take them both out. But it's it's kind of hard to do consistently. This is one of the easier bosses. If you just stay in the center area of the screen and focus on the minions and just kind of stay in the center, dodge the grenades, and when the helicopters get low enough, you can take them out with a single stab. There's one point where I jumped straight up and stabbed the helicopter, and then I stabbed the minion. That's very intentional. It works every time, so you can do it just like that. So if you're having trouble, just check that pattern. It's pretty consistent. So this is the ladder hell level. It's kind of a bullshit level where there's tons of fucking ladders. And the bad thing about that is you get caught up on the ladders like a motherfucker in this area because they're everywhere. So this is where you'll really see my strategy in action, where I stay behind the ladders, I inch the screen, and I get the enemies to come out, and I'll even retreat back behind the ladder, as you see. I'm trying to play it really fucking safe because I've died so many times on this stupid shit. And it's pretty much always been because I got caught on the fucking ladder. Now, if you do get caught on a ladder when you jump, commit to it. Make sure you're holding up the whole, because you want to go all the way up if you're going to land on the ladder. You want to walk all the way up the ladder so that you'll have a chance of avoiding the enemy. So it's kind of preemptive. If you're going to jump towards the ladder, hold up so that you just go all the way up. But it's kind of hard to plan for that. But that's kind of what I ended up doing at points. See, like that, you want to commit to it. You don't want to get stuck on the ladder. So expect that you might get caught on the ladder if you're jumping towards it. You're going to definitely get caught up on the ladder if you're jumping towards it. So just be holding up. So at least you have a chance of climbing up the ladder and avoiding the enemy. Now, I did try taking the top route exclusively. Like, I tried jumping from platform to platform, running up all the ladders. I was dying a lot. I mean, I know it's possible to do, but I just found it a lot easier to just play super fucking carefully, inch the screen, and just stay down here. This is what works for me the best. I'd have to practice a lot more to do the upper route. It's just a waste of my fucking time, really. I mean, I'm not trying to speed run. So yeah, continuing to inch the screen. We're getting pretty close to the end of this ladder hell segment here. But it's one of the more irritating parts of the game. This is one of the hardest stages. As is the previous stage is also kind of a pain in the ass, but I would say this is probably the hardest stage. This is the semi-final stage, so the next stage is the last stage. But this is definitely the hardest stage. The boss for this stage is complete fucking bullshit too, but there is a very specific trick, which I'll try to explain. You might want to practice, like I said, well, I didn't say it on this playthrough, but I say it all the time, practice these games with save states on an emulator. What I did was I do a practice run of the full game where I use save states to practice sections that might give me trouble. I'll redo stages and things like that by reloading the saves. And it took me about an hour and 40 minutes to practice through this whole game. A full practice run, completing the whole game. But of course, it's not a legit completion, it's a practice completion. So that's where you jump away and then jump back forward and take the guys out. I had mentioned that little maneuver. Sometimes that will save your ass. So it's something I fall back on. I try not to rely on it, but if I get cornered, I will do that. But yeah, I use save states to practice through the entire game. And something like maybe the bosses, I might try to beat the bosses 3 3 times in a row, or a few times in a row, just to make sure I know how to do it. Stuff like that. I do a rough practice run, but it was still, a decent practice run. It was still an hour and 40 minutes of practicing, so it was a decent. It wasn't that short. But I didn't do a really refined practice where I practice all the hard parts, 10 times. I've done that for games like Jim Power for the Super Nintendo. Jim Power and the Lost Dimension. It's an insanely tedious and difficult game. But for something like this, I kind of do a rough practice. And then I will make saves as I'm doing my official runs of the game. And if I die on a certain part and, lose all my lives, I'll reload the save and then I'll practice the parts that I fucked up on. So for this part, I like to use a grenade to take out that orange guy and those red assholes in this particular area. It makes it way easier. So I recommend grabbing the grenade that I got earlier on in that mine area and using it for that group of assholes. It's really hard to deal with those guys without a grenade. I mean, I've done it before in practice, but it's a lot harder to deal with them. You gotta like do a ducking strike, and then you gotta do some crazy helicopter jumping where you're pivoting left to right and stabbing, and it's just like if you don't do it perfectly, you'll die. So I just recommend bringing a grenade like I did. Everything is pretty much for a reason that I'm doing, inching the screen and, stuff like that. Though it definitely wasn't executed perfectly. And you see how easy it is to fuck up. So, we're almost on the final stage. But yeah, practicing is the main thing. Doing a practice run with save states, then refining your practice on the parts you die on. Make sure you're saving as you're playing. I use foot pedals to save and load state on the emulator. I got a map to save and load state functions, so I don't even have to use a keyboard or anything when I'm playing the game. I can save just by hitting it with the foot pedal. It makes it a lot easier. I mean, I got into doing that when I was playing brutal games, like Gunsmoke for arcade. I was thinking I wish I had a fucking foot pedal because I had to reload my saves like every 2 seconds. It was exhausting when trying to actually practice the bosses in that game. Unfortunately, I didn't have access to the foot pedal at that time, but after I beat that game, I said, fuck it, man, I got to get a foot pedal or some shit. So I figured that would, that's made a big difference when practicing these games. Yeah, so you see the boss killed me immediately. So you're going to see it's not the easiest thing to do. And you may die a few times, even if you've practiced it. I still die on it sometimes. But I'll try to explain what I was doing here. For these guys, it's good to jump across and take them out in a row while constantly stabbing. It makes it easier to take out all 3. You can also just walk under them, which, that's probably the easiest way to do it, but I just never did that because I don't trust that there's going to be another guy walking under them, and hit me. But for this part, what you do is you go to that 4th pillar of the fence, stand underneath it. As soon as you see the boss descend down from the top of the screen, you walk all the way to the left side of the screen, duck, turn around, and constantly stab, and then you'll take out the boss. But you got to do it like perfectly with the timing, otherwise their bullets go in a weird alignment and kill you. It's a real bullshit boss. It's probably the worst part of the game. It's just total bullshit. I mean, because it's not something you would logically think to do on a boss fight. But I saw it in a video. That's how I knew to do that. It probably would have taken me a while to practice and to work that out with save states. But it's pretty shitty, especially when you're playing this game without saves to practice. You just what the fuck. It's one of those weird fucking, weird moments that doesn't really make any sense. It's not too uncommon with NES games, but it's definitely bullshit. It's basically like these helicopters come down, but there's fucking bullets everywhere, and there's nowhere to go. So I'm not sure how you're supposed to do that normally. So this stage is actually quite easy for the most part, but it goes on for quite a while. But I like to stay at the top. And I would say just inch the screen, take your time, and just take out the enemies as you have been. And look for orange guys on the bottom of the screen. Those are the only guys that can come up and attack you. And they will come up and attack you. So be aware of them and then just duck and stab by the ladder. But, don't stab too close to the ladder or you'll die. Sometimes I would have my head peeking over the ladder, and that's like a death. So I learned just to stay a little bit farther back from the ladder. Don't be right on top of it. So you just got to look out for those orange guys on the bottom of the screen, and then you just got to manage these guys up at the top. And it's just going to be, it's pretty much mostly going to be, you know, regular running guys and the jumping guys. But if you inch the screen, you won't get as many bad combinations of enemies where it's like, you know, you avoid one enemy and then you die on the next one if you try to move too fast. So it's better to just kind of try to play it safe. Try to spawn one enemy at a time when you can. You just really inch the screen because there's no timer in this game. So see, I'm playing really carefully. There is a tricky section at the end of the stage. See, that kind of shit is dangerous. And then I did the old, you know, jumping back and then turning around in midair stab. That, like I said, I've done that maneuver a few times in this run. But that's usually when I get in a bad situation. But at the end of the stage, there's a laser section, which can be tough if you don't get it right. I will say, you know, practice that part for sure with save states, because you might get it like early on and think that you got it down, but you want to make sure that you can do it. Otherwise, you're going to waste all your lives and then, you know, restart the game. So it's worth practicing that part. But it's pretty simple when you know what to do. It's basically don't stop moving at any point, and you know, as you're moving, you want to keep jumping as well and jumping forward and stabbing. And you want to line that up so that you're, of course, stabbing the enemies as you're moving. You want to get two things done at once. You want to be moving constantly without stopping and taking out the enemies or jumping over them at the very least. So you want to make sure you got that shit lined up. It may take a little practice, but it's really not that hard. It's just, it's easy to fuck up. You don't really have that many lives to fuck around with. I think I fucked it up on this run, but I think I got it on the second try. The final boss, I'm going to show you an exploit that I saw in a speedrun video. I may actually be doing it a little bit different, but it's similar. I'm going to try to explain it. You'll see, though, if you watch the video, and you may have to watch it again to see exactly, but it should make sense. You can see this part goes on for a while. There's not really that much going on, but it's easy to fuck up because if you die, you get sent back pretty far. So this is the laser section that I'm about to fuck up. I wait for the red guy usually to pass, and then I'll jump down. That's usually what I do, but let's see. Well, that was fine, but the idea is to keep moving forward and jumping and attacking. All right, I guess I made it past the lasers this time, so that was good. I probably died on the actual boss. So let's see. Yeah, so just stab on the right side of the screen and jump when you hit the orange guy. So as soon as you stab the orange guy, jump and grab the rocket launcher. And keep stabbing the right side of the screen. See, I jumped too early. If you fuck it up at all, you'll get killed because you're right on the edge of the screen. So any little fuck up is pretty much a death. But it's actually not that hard. But I do recommend practicing that for, you know, a good 5 or 10 minutes at least to just make sure you got it in your muscle memory. So that you don't fuck it up, because then you got to redo the whole game. So you know it's worth learning that. So here we're going to do the lasers again, so you get a nice little double demonstration of this sequence. You see, it's just about constantly moving and jumping and attacking as needed. So keep stabbing the right side of the screen, and whenever you hit the orange guy, jump and grab the rocket. And as you're falling back down, you can fire your 3 rockets. That's what I do. I'm doing it kind of fast, but if you notice, I'm firing my rockets in midair as I come back down from my jump. And I missed that one, so it went off over there. But you know, I was able to grab it and finish off. But you can do that for the whole fight. That's probably the fastest way that you can even kill the thing. It's a speedrun tech, but I like it as just a regular technique to use because it's really not that hard to do. It takes a little bit of practice, but it's not too bad. Otherwise, that boss can actually be pretty tough, but the one on the Famicom disc version is ridiculously hard. You do respawn where you died in that version, but you don't really have that many lives. So unless you bring a bunch of lives to that part, it'd be pretty damn hard. Because there's enemies coming from the left and right side in the Famicom disc version, which makes it way fucking harder. In this version, luckily, enemies only spawn from the right side of the screen. So with that technique, it should be very easy with a little practice. Let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching.